Okay, let the record state that we had an executive session from 6 p.m. to 6:40 p.m. We are now in the budget review meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Henderson?
Here.
Mr. Petroselli?
Here.
Mr. Gallarducci?
Here.
Mr. Colosimo? Here. Mr. Verducci?
Here.
Mrs. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Shashovsky?
Here.
Mayor Copeland?
Here.
And I'm Joe Connell.
Okay, first of all, let me open up by saying this is unbelievable what you've given us. I mean, it is so well done, and if anybody that takes the time to read the narrative, not just look at the numbers, there's really little. And I'm not trying to influence anybody's night here, but there's really little room for discussion on a lot of this.
Yeah.
So you've done a tremendous job with this, and I'll say this, you've dumbed it down for me, and I won't speak for anybody else, but I appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
Tremendous work.
Well, and I love that we can hand this to somebody that wants to know about Ridgeville.
Yes.
And they can read it and
Understand where you're
understand what our
Where all the money goes and what your taxes go.
There is no question from anybody. So, yes,
Second, Pat will be here asking questions.
but he, to be honest with you, he can, because it's all explained right there. Really.
Any other comments before we get in? I'll turn it over to Joe.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Anyway, I think it is worthy of turning this over to you, Joe, and from whatever level you want to take us to, that's great. If you have some questions, you want us to interject during the line items,
Please do.
Okay.
All right, so what we'll do is easy just to follow along by the larger legal size spreadsheet. It's broken down. The highlighting was meant to make it easier to separate the years, but some of the colors I think that it's hard to see. So when we get to the final draft of this, the years didn't color well. So this will be the final one. Will just be white. I won't do the colors on it because the 2022 I think it's hard to read. So just give me some slack on that one. But if you look at it, we've got first column is 2019, that's in gold, so these are actual numbers. 2020 is the next group, and those are actual numbers in your budget. The green is where we're at right now, and there's three columns. The first one is what we budgeted for 21. The next one is where we were when I did the budget back on September 20th. And then the third column is like my year-end forecast for the year. The orangish red is for 2022 budget, and then the change between the years. And in the note column, feel free to take notes, and some of the more pertinent things you'll see are already started in the comments. Going through in the first page, these are revenues in the general fund. So the majority of these are just your typical taxes. Real estate taxes, I have going up overall $37,000 next year. It's twofold. One, based on trends, and then two, there's been some slight changes of assessment off homes value sales, off of school district challenging things, and building permits. But overall, the big thing is delinquent collection has increased dramatically over the past couple of years, and the budget is reflecting that. And then if you look at the amount that's projected for next year, that's a realistic number of what's open still. So I feel confident that we'll hit these benchmarks. Act 511 taxes, these are your real estate transfer tax, earned income. Overall, it's not much of an increase, over $6,000. I have earned income tax going up $4,000, and real estate transfer tax going up $2,000. I think my revenues are conservative, but realistic, so just keep that in mind. I think they'll do better, but I don't want to be too optimistic. The bottom of the page are permits. There's decreases in a couple of them. Decreases in street opening permits, just because there isn't that much activity there. And then cable franchise. A lot of people are discontinuing cable service now, and we're seeing that number go down every quarter. So it's just, I think a lot of people, I know I'm for one, I just have internet at home the street. So there's that. Now, the parks are actually up for the year and projected to go up. That's twofold. One, field permits, and also the shelters are increasing in usage. The next page, the top is mechanical amusement devices. These are gaming machines in town. These are actual numbers, and it's up $2,000. Next group is fines. Fine revenue, it's kind of status quo, really no changes here. There's a little bit up in DUI program, and a little bit down in state police, so overall it's an increase of just $900. The next group is interest is on the general fund, and it's down just because the bank isn't paying interest.
And I can tell you that unfortunately, the Federal Reserve is even paying less than Brentwood Bank right now. So it's just, that's how it is with money. I had a management meeting last week or something, and they're projecting the rates to pretty much be stagnant most of next year.
Hey, can we back up on this one? I apologize. Explain the DUI program. Is that state?
No, it's a check from the county. So it's essentially, the DUI arrests. They're not paid at the magistrate. They're somehow paid through county courts, and they come to us with a separate check every month.
So this is a result of our DUI activity?
And it's been very steady. If you look back at the prior years, the numbers are pretty much straightforward. Going on to the next group is the foreign fire insurance. This is the state fire relief check that we get once a year. That's again going down. Insurance revenue is down, so that shows that going down, just to match this year's actual collections. The next group are intergovernmental entitlements. The big haircut here is state pension aid, and I have a note on this. This is a good thing, so don't look at this and see, oh my God, we're down to $25,000. A full-time policeman is worth 2 units of state aid, so it's roughly $10,000. Well, if you remember back in September when I presented the MMO, the fund is doing very well. So it actually is performing better than expectations. That got turned in to the state with our, every 2 years you do an actuarial review. The actuarial review warrants that we're not entitled to the full 2 units because the fund is overfunded. So the actuary says next year anticipate $44,000 worth of state aid. So that's
To balance it out.
correct. So so basically they're not going to overpay us. Is what it comes down to. So that's why you see this down to $25,000. The non-uniform is still at the full value because that fund is kind of just status quo. So that's why that shows down $25,000, and that's off our numbers off the actuary, off of our MMO. 1% sales tax. This is an interesting number. Our RAD tax, this is the county 1%, give us 7% sales tax in Allegheny County. It's up tremendously. If you look at the third green column, like for this year we budgeted $156,000 that we thought we were going to get for RAD tax, and it's kind of what we've been in the prior years. We're on track to end this year at $178,000. So either what it really means is things are costing a lot more, or the economy is not as bad as we really think. But that trend has been continuing over the past couple months, and I don't see why it's going to stop going into next year. So I have RAD going up to 165, and it's still conservative. So overall, it shows intergovernmental entitlements down 14,000, but the main thing was the pension aid. The tax office is just going up $500. Sure, which just finds every little way to nitpick the school district, which is good. So that's what it is. Lien letters is going up $1,000. There's a lot of transactions, and then this year we increased the fee on lien letters to $50, so it's bringing in more. Tax certifications is the same thing on the next page. The next group is like the miscellaneous revenue. There's 2 things here worth pointing out. One is the insurance dividend. This year, our dividend was $65,000. We budgeted $80,000, so there was a little bit of a shortfall there with that. How you going to forecast your dividend? But it came in lesser than what prior year's budgets were. So then next year, I just have the dividend coming in conservative at $70,000. If you look at the prior years, in 2020 it was $92,000, in 19 it was $80,000, this year $65,000, so I have next year go to $70,000. So kind of just be other than that, everything's pretty much the same. Miscellaneous sale is the sale of the police car, that would be Chad's chief car, and then some public works equipment that I'll explain on the expenditure side. Going down, you'll see, we'll go to like the wage increase reimbursement. So this is the sewer fund and the garbage fund reimburse the general fund for public works and administration work. I have that going up 3% just to match what the expenditures are. So overall, the general fund revenue for next year is forecasted at roughly $3.3 million. It's an increase of $22,000, so it really wasn't much. But in all reality, the pension aid was a huge haircut of $25,000. So that's kind of like a reset button kind of deal. So any question on general fund revenues? So I think if the synopsis is there's no tax increase for next year, and operations kind of stay status quo, over the line. Now moving forward on expenditures, council, it's set by ordinance. My salary, I have going at 3%, just matching everyone else. The other positions are 3%, you see that in the notes section. Going down to line 01, 400, 424 seminars, 4,000 is still in place for ALUM. The budget we set for ALUM seemed to be pretty good this year. We sent pretty much everyone who wanted to go, so it's the same thing for next year. Copier maintenance agreement, that's year 2. It's substantial. We pay $6,800 for the copier contract. So administration is pretty much the only increases you have is the salary.
I'm sorry, Joe, does that copier include fire departments too?
No, that's paid out of fire department.
So the 6,800 is just for that one machine?
And all the printers. So
Okay.
You print a lot of stuff.
we do.
I can stack up.
Yeah.
It's a second box.
All right, then the next group now is 402s. This is financial. This is your treasurer. It stays the same. The big change here is I'm asking for permission to put an RFP out for auditing services. I honestly believe we're overpaying for our annual audit, and you're not even getting a technical thorough audit. So I know very confidently that 10,000 is even pushing. I feel that this number should be about $8,000 for a town of our size.
Wait to do that at December meeting?
I think it'd be smart at our December's meeting to put it out there.
And I had asked her, Joe brought this up to me earlier. I got a very, how much are you paying? So,
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because the firm that does here, pounds, and they produce actual audit reports that kind of look like this. They give you a narrative of everything. We don't get that. We get a DCD audit report that really should. Towns elect people to do that, you know, and they're disrespectful. It's not an audit, so I'm just saying we're being ripped off. That's very candid. So I think I'd like to put an RFP up. I don't know if you're agenda in December. And I feel that when we come back and reset, because we run a 3-year contract with them, so we couldn't break it this year. When they were here, I said, "Charge $13,000 for this," and he knew what it was too much. So I feel like he's going to come back with a better number, which I'd be hopeful.
but is it worth even having to come back? It doesn't matter.
I don't
You
know.
work with them, is he comfortable with
They
it?
do good work, but it's not, we're not getting what we, right, yeah, you know. So that's it, we'll have it on December's agenda. Tax collector commission goes up $500, and that's for delinquent tax salary per the memorandum of understanding we did with her. So that's what that 500 is. Miscellaneous expenses, I have gone up $450, and this is for the contract for their copier in the tax office. Going on top of the next page, tax collector bond. It's $2,500 next year. You pay it one time every 4 years. So that's why you see that here, but you don't see it in the prior years. So overall tax is going up $4,500 next year. Legal, I have staying the same, no changes. Now this getting to the next group is insurances. It kind of dovetails a lot of the earlier conversations. Dental insurance, the only change is some singles going to families. Vision, this was the change of going to what we agreed to in the collective bargaining agreements, so that number's a real number. Workers' comp is based off of just wages, so that's a confident number. Hospitalization, even though our rates are going down, we had 2 change of lives within the Public Works Department that cost substantial. So it's going up next year, 17,400, and it's mainly because of those 2 change of life events. Life insurance, it's down a little bit. Same with the immunity service fee. FICA and Medicare is based off of the 3% increases, so these are off of the actual salaries. Any questions on insurances?
Let me back up to legal. Looking at the differences year over year, I mean, this past year it's drastically reduced. What was the big thing in 2020 when we were so high, and this year we're at 19 versus 64, 65,000? Anyone remember?
I don't
Have to do with
Just
all
managing our legal thing.
or is there a possible big increase coming, for example? You took that into consideration with what you're anticipating.
I've been really active with him last week because of the whole Robinson ordeal. But aside from the Robinson ordeal, it's a lot of it's just handled in the house. This past week, because of that sewer line, has been the only high demand for him, and that with the toll bridge. So aside from that, and that wasn't into my year-end forecast because it's projected.
Did you get permission from us now?
Aspiotis, yes, I met with Nick.
Yeah.
He's very nice. Really nice.
Well, knock on wood, we didn't have anything huge,
They have to use
and I
that,
think we're managing that a little better too.
they have to use their draw.
But the past week and a half have been busy with the full loading down there, so.
Let's go too soon.
Yeah.
Word on them on,
What?
when we're trying to do that.
For Ben.
He reached out to the Upper St. Clair solicitor, and Upper St. Clair solicitor is supposed to get him that number, and I think Tom's prepared to file suit. I don't have anything for you. All right, moving on to 407s, this is like computers and what have you. I have pretty much, it's going down $1,000 for internet line. Basically, it just matches what the budget's actual costs are. And then program maintenance fees are down because this year we paid a one-time fee to upgrade our accounting software. So there's no need to do that next year. And one thing nice with that, we were hoping that once we upgraded that people would have the ability to go on our website and pay their garbage bill on their own. And it was launched today. So if you go on our website across the top, you'll see pay your garbage bill, pay your sewer bill, and you can click a button and then you can just do it yourself whenever you want. So it's nice.
Are you still doing the electronic automatic payments?
Yes. Good.
Is it worth trying to solicit more people to do that in some fashion? Or is it
Probably a good idea.
less
It'd be a
checks-
good, it'd be a good newsletter for us to
yeah, less checks going through that scanner and then costing the bank more money to buy a new scanner? Oh, is it?
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. I know it's something I never thought of, so I'll make it.
Especially if we're having more and more people moving into the community that want to have electronic payments, maybe they're just not even aware.
I'm shocked on how many don't even care paying $3 for their credit card. I don't understand that, but they don't think twice. I don't get it.
I don't either.
I know.
Especially when you have the ability of just having an electronic ticket out of
Yeah,
your
why
check.
would I pay $3 extra every quarter? It's
They pay
unbelievable.
$6 for a cup of coffee now, they don't get much about that either.
But that actually was going to be one of my questions, or I think we talked about that, if we were paying for the interchange charges, the customer tax.
Customer pays like $3.
But in your everyday dealings, you're paying for that 3%. Because we have to do it, I mean, in our overall cost. And
Right.
if we go outside, like towing companies, when other companies come and they want to pay by credit card, we charge them 5% for the whole thing. So it You're paying it somewhere along the way. Pay me now, pay me later, right here.
If you're taking that into consideration
Yeah.
on margins.
Right. Moving on, 408s, which is engineer. I have one big going up, 15,000 for flood engineering. I have a service order from them that I'm sitting on to do the permitting, to do the phase one of the levee project. It's almost like $50,000 to $55,000 in just engineering work. So I didn't want to just sign off on it. That's something that we really need to maybe have a consult with them to see what we can do to bring that down. But this budget at 65,000 next year, the only flood work we really have going on that would be next year's budget, aside from wrapping up what we're doing, is advancing phase one of the flood project. And this matches that service order that's sitting on the desk. And then regarding that phase one of that project, the FEMA grant is due Friday this week. They gave us 2 weeks to turn around, but I should have it done, I'm hoping on Thursday, so it gives me a day if there's any problems, but we're ready to submit that grant application that seeks almost like $4 million for that project. It's a lot, it pays 75%, so we're still on the hook for 25% if it gets funded, which is like 1.4 million. It sounds scary, but like, if we were able to get that $4 million, it would be smart to do like a 30-year bond or something that would just pay this out for a very, very long time. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, but I think we got a very good application, and what they made me do for a grant application for this project is more than I've done for most of the others. And I think that's done on purpose, because the window is so short, most people would think that it gave up. So I'm hoping that whittles out a lot of our competition. But I don't know, we're giving it an honest attempt. If it don't get funded, we'll keep trying and sharpen the pencil. But at least we're in the race. They accepted our letter of interest. We have an application going in this week. But to advance that, to start the permitting is in the budget.
Is that what we're doing next year? We should give them
Yeah. You saved my raise, so I think that.
Yeah. And the
Use
chiefs.
that $4
Yeah.
million you might get around,
Yeah.
So if it doesn't get funded, we don't.
or bonus.
No, I still think we should do it because it's not going away. I think we're all serious that we want to do this flood project. So even if it don't get awarded, I think we start the permitting process, get it moving, and then we'll just keep looking anywhere
Maybe
we can
5
find.
years before you get to it.
Yeah, it's not going to be fast. It's going to take time, and this isn't our one time with this one grant. Anytime we see a chance, even if it's piecemeal, we'll do it. So I'm hopeful within 5 years we have the money. I'm very confident. It's not going to be this time. I think we're just. That's it. Next one is 409, which is the borough building. The only thing that's really going down is floor mats. I stopped renting them. I thought that was wasteful, so we just went to Sam's Club and bought floor mats versus paying them every month to those floor mats. So that's why you see that going down. Next group is on the next page, building maintenance going down $5,000. This year, we had in there, we replaced the phone system in the borough building. It was a one-time fee, so that really isn't needed next year. But I kept it up. If you look back to 2019, we didn't budget much for building maintenance, but this year, I still kept it at $5,000. If you looked at like last winter, slow days, I had the road crew repainting every room, fixing plaster and stuff like that. And we got a lot back here done. Now that the roof's done, I want to get this back stairwell fixed, get that painted, and get this one redone, and just keep finishing it up. So it's good winter work that needs done. So that's where that would take care of. Any questions on like borough building? Okay, next one is the 410s, which is the police department. Longevity pay is down $2,600. It's going up 3%, but we have one officer that's retiring. Chris actually submitted his retirement letter today. He's going to retire on January 8th. So I'm hoping that at our December meeting, we accept his retirement. Everything is on track for January. We get him off our books, pay him what he's due. And then February 1st, the budget is set for his replacement to start. So these numbers are all based on paying Chris's sick days, vacation days, and the time in January, and then the new guy, which is hypothetically off the civil service list, Dane, would start February. So
How old is Chris?
he's 60. He's 60.
Have they determined who's replacing him? So
Dane,
Dane,
Dane is the number one on the list.
all right.
He's last, he's,
I just wanted to confirm that. That's
yeah,
what I thought.
and he already works for us.
Right, right.
Yeah. So when you see longevity down, it's because of the retirement. The other wages, such as police chief, sergeant, patrolman, and all of them are up 3%. Holidays is again up 3%. Over duty time, I kept the number low, but it's 1,000. Uniform allowance, it's up $1,700. There's an additional $2,500 built into this for the new hire, basically one time, there's costs for initial application. Computer maintenance, it says down $940. What happened was, years past, the internet for the police station was paid out of here. But the past 2 years, we paid that bill out of the borough building, so that just reflects true numbers. Computer supplies, which is 410,211, is up $5,100. This replaces 2 laptops within the police cars. Those laptops are roughly 10 years old and at the end of their life. So we're going to be doing 2 of them next year. The next big increase for $1,800 is maintenance of the SUVs. It's just that the older SUVs are costing more, so I get that number going up.
Hey Joe, just seeing the copier maintenance on this expense as well. Is it something in the future we should consider doing something different, or is it just economically makes sense to?
We actually did do something different last year. We had to brought all these numbers down. But I think when you look at the prior numbers, a lot of them were weighted heavily that the administration was just paying 100% of it, and that number was higher. But Cheryl actually divided it down. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's fine. Going on to the next page, continuing the police department. Telephone is up, just matching what capital costs are. Same with postage. The next thing is the capital purchase is $44,000. It shows it down for $1,000. Next year, it's proposed to replace the chief's car. It's approximately 10 years old now. You probably get good money off it for selling it, but it's been its end of life. This year, the car is due in this week, is what they're telling us. So I'm hopeful it's this week. It sounds like
Before the next New Year.
Yeah, but
You're gonna get him a new one, Joe, or?
I asked him to replace that car next year.
Is it gonna be burgundy? That's probably the question.
Yeah. But it's a Charger. This dollar amount is off of a Charger with some of the equipment that you see in the other police cars, such as a cage and stuff. So that's why it's less. With that, if there's no opposition, I wouldn't mind getting approval, knowing the lead time, that getting approval to purchase this car in December meeting, just because we wait so long. We placed this order, I think, back in, it was March, February, March. Well, it's November until we have the car. So the car's been in and paid for a couple months. When we got the public works truck downstairs, when was that, 2 months ago, maybe longer?
3 months ago.
Yeah, we paid for the Charger. The Charger's been sitting in line at the outfitter for 3 months.
Yeah.
So,
They don't have anybody to work.
so that's been the problem. So the car's been here paid for. It's just been a matter of getting the emergency equipment on it. So I want to get ahead of that and maybe get that on the December agenda.
I'd wait until after the first of the year to do it, simply because once the computer stuff, those dealers are sitting on a lot of cars that are sitting there already made, but they don't have computer chips on them. Once that breaks loose, car prices are going to go down big time.
We're set at CoStar's prices.
I'm just saying, the talk in the industry is that the prices, once the dealers are flooded with new vehicles, that they're going to go out so much, because just like Fleet Depot, they have over 60,000 cars back ordered. People are keeping their cars longer because of leases, because they're waiting for the new cars to come out. So
But if you ordered it in December, wouldn't,
you pay December, you'll pay the prices now. And prices are high now.
See, I thought it is the bid is for a 2022 or 23 Charger, and that's the bid price.
I don't know what,
based on the group purchase price,
And we don't have the luxury of that.
negotiate?
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
I'll ask Chuck.
Yeah.
That change.
But next year, I wouldn't mind replacing the car. It's needed just to get back in the cycle, otherwise we're going to be behind our 8 ball. So overall, the police department is going up $33,306, and that doesn't include insurances or the benefits. That's the hard core. Moving on to the next group, which is 411, which is the fire department. The first line of supplies, that's what we pay the fire department copier out of. And then the way it works is, all year through December, we pay the copier bill, and then after that bill's paid in December, whatever's left in there, we cut a check to the fire department. So it's usually like $8,000. The next group is our gasoline, doesn't change. Fire protection, I had an increase in the contribution to the fire department of $5,000 next year. Mainly just because I had increases going into EMS, the library, the fire department. I think it's deserved. We rely on them for pretty much everything in town. They host community events, we go there for the call. Just events are down, I think it's more than it, and our budget can support it, so I'm asking for $5,000.
Is there any anticipation of them needing to buy a new vehicle anytime in the future that you know of?
I would say soon. If you think about it, the rescue's like a 2003, the pumper's like a 2005. You still got a good bit of life still in that area. I think there's still like 400,000 on the ladder.
There's any miles on it.
But it goes usually on years.
Yeah.
I will say this, I had a conversation with the chief, and he told me they have had an incredible fundraising year with these tickets. So he's pleased, and again, knock on wood, they're not knocking on our door.
Yeah, and they didn't ask for this. I think it will go very far, but it will here.
But the $75,000 ticket, don't we cut that directly to the fire company, or do they?
No, we cut it directly to them in September.
Okay, so then the difference will just get.
Yeah, essentially it's the same thing.
Okay.
So instead of getting 75 in September, you get 80.
Oh, we give them the 75 and then they cut the check payment.
Yes,
Truck payment.
correct. That's what they do.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
And they have 2 loans. I was curious on their just they were financial. They have the loan for the Arrow, which is like about 400,000-ish. I may be getting that number wrong. And they took a loan out a year or 2 for air packs, and they owe about 14 grand on that loan.
Did they just get it?
They bought it used. They
But I
quickly
mean,
deal.
but,
I think they paid 10 grand. They bought that off the loan. And they use that for the ambulance.
It seems like their finances have turned around. We were concerned about that a couple of years ago. Right now, it seems like, I mean, I'm not hearing anything negative like we were before.
And then the other thing was is they stepped up to the plate on the workers' comp. You know, they're active on the safety committee. The safety committee did lower their premium on the workers' comp. And we've only had 1 claim on the fire department this year. And I think it was good because the person that had the claim is a member of the safety committee. And we diagnosed his accident and what he could have done differently. So I like
See that armchair? Knock on it, great.
Cat of the year's not over yet.
But I'm just saying, it is working, so it is working. We do quarterly inspections of the facility, of, where our safety hazards, what can be done, and they're not telling
The
us.
committee does?
The committee does.
Oh, okay.
And they're a member of the committee, so it's been.
Good.
So that's fire. Oh, last thing is EMS. I have EMS going up to 10,000 from 7,500 to 10 for next year. The increases, just what we're giving to Southbridge. Any questions on that? All right. So then the next thing is building inspection. There's really no change. Just matches what permits are. The next.
Should we make some type of acknowledgement or something showing that we're supporting like at the meeting or anything, or is it just part of the budget?
What, the fire department and the EMS?
EMS.
Oh, I think it's smart that, like, once we adopt the budget, that could be just mentioned in, hey, next year there's increased contributions to the library, EMS, fire, and then maybe we can have a letter to them saying, hey, as part of the adopted 2022 budget, your contribution is 10,000, and thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
And then
I'm
the-
saying,
Yeah.
yeah.
the only one that reached out for like increased funding next year was the ambulance. Because Dan goes, "What is your budget?" Dan, I said, "It's this week." And I said, "I'll be honest with you, Dan." I said, "In the draft budget that we've already presented to the finance committee is an increase to EMS. We have proposed going from 75 to 10. He goes, "Oh my God, thank you so much." He was grateful and appreciative. He goes, "No, I don't need to come to that meeting." I said, "I'm sure." So,
And they had like,
They ain't cheap.
all right, going on to the next page, 415. I wanted to point this out. This is his consulting fees. This is the comp plan project. I'm still waiting on the grant. And I've reached out to him and I heard back, but unofficially, it looks like the project's awarded, but they haven't made announcements yet. So if it is awarded, it's basically, we have to match it by 35,000, the grant's for 35,000. So this year's budget, we had $25,000 in it. Just so that money's not lost, we're going to put on the bill is transferring that 25 from the general fund to the capital project fund, so that we don't have to, we can just put that aside for next year. And then next year is our remaining $10,000 match that's in the general fund budget. So you see this going down 15, but we're still on the hook for 10 next year. And we were supposed to know back on November 1st if the project was awarded. So I went to him and I showed Justine the email, and she says, "I'm 99% sure you're funded. We've had some changeover in the department. They haven't made announcements yet."
What was the amount of fund?
35,000.
Oh, okay.
So it pays 50% of the fund. And everything's done. Like we vetted all the firms, the planning commission made the recommendation to you guys. It's just waiting for them to say we're awarded. And as soon as they're awarded, the next agenda item is to hire that firm, and the money's all in place.
That's great.
So let's please. Going on is 420, which is animal control, no changes. Now 430 gets you into the public works department. We already talked about the first line item. Going down, the next thing is capital purchases. Is there any more change here? This year we purchased a truck. Next year there's a request, or actually not a request. We have one of the tractors which is shot and it's beyond repair. So they demoed new tractors and demoed zero turns, and there's a recommendation to buy a Cub Cadet zero turn next year, which is $13,000. And we can do the parts and all the lots. It's a nice tractor. And they checked out a bunch of different types, so at least we got a machine that the crew's happy with, and it actually was a very good price compared to the other ones.
I have a question on the public work foreman. What do we do with the guy with the phone supposedly saying, "Why did I get anything?"
That's a very simple answer.
Go ahead.
You're part of a collective bargaining agreement. He's not.
He's not good. The answer is there.
The answer's there.
That's fine. I just want to make that clear, so there is no.
There is no personal answer to this. It's very black and white. And I would hope for uniformity on that black and white response. Going down to the bottom is salt and snow removal. Overtime I have going up for next year. Mainly, I'm just matching the winter we had from 2020 to 2021. We had a pretty bad winter last year that it wasn't like blizzards, but it was pretty much every day. We were out with snow calls daily, pretty much. So overtime was over budget, which you reported on, we all know about. It wasn't wasteful, it's just there was a lot of activity. And if you look at prior years, we didn't have anything, so it's just a gamble. But I'm pretty confident that last year was a pretty severe winter, that if you're going to match severe winters, I'm going to match out. So next year's budget matches the severity of last year's winter.
Yeah.
And salt prices are staying the same next year, but this year, last year we used more salt than we anticipated.
Yeah,
So
we have a lot left.
there's about 400 tons down there.
I mean, year
For the year
before,
before.
Oh yeah, year before, look, 2020, you only
Yeah.
used $12,000 worth of salt. This year, we're at $80,613 in salt.
So we are with the cog for salt, right?
We are, and it's $78 a ton,
Yeah. Right.
which is
It's not
You
it's
don't
not bad,
have
it's
the,
expensive. It used to be.
you don't have the amount that you have to keep them every year.
I did. We're locked in.
Okay.
You we had to meet a certain timeline. But the price stayed the same, so
Okay.
it was advantageous.
Okay, okay.
And we were fortunate where we exceeded contract where they could have penalized us, so we would have had to pay.
Yeah, storage fee.
Yeah, and they didn't hold us to that, so we kind of got off, and I think we paid
Because
extra.
it was all for 14,000, they wanted for storage of the, that's
Yes.
what they came through.
Yes, but they didn't do it, and everything worked out, but next year's budget is, we're budgeting 81,000 for salt, which is a lot, but it's a conservative number on a severe winter. Moving on, the next group is 433, signage. I have sign material go down 1,500, but this number was inflated for 2021. We bought the new welcome signs this year. They're not needed next year, but I have the number still up there compared to prior budgets, mainly because the active transportation plan is going to come out, and you know there's going to be a lot of signage changes and requests, so I was hoping to have the ability to sort of implement the active transportation plan, and that's where the ability to do so would come from.
Do you think that'll be enough?
No, it's going to have to be phased, and I'll see grants and do little light each time. Going down, really no changes until you get to the MS4 program. I had this going up 10 grand just to match actual what we're paying for the engineer. Our MS4 program has been active this year, mainly on a couple things. We had the storm center program, we have the stream bank repairs going on, fixing the outfalls down Lockland Creek, at the park, at the creek here. There's been a lot of activity on the stormwater side, and I'm just pumping that back up to be conservative.
Any feedback on those new sectors?
No, there's been anything, all the crew's been trained on it, and they know how they work, and they know how to clean them, and there's been no complaints about them. And I think like the urban legends that we were told, which you actually, I personally was there for the class on how they work and how you maintain it. It's literally, imagine this in the ground, this is the pit where the dirt goes in and the pipes across the top. There's no way this thing's gonna shoot into the sky. There's nothing to it. And then when the pit's full, all it does is just go across and act as it does now. So even if there was a problem, you're not gonna know about it unless something's going on that we don't know about. That's it. And they've been in the ground now for 2-3 months. And that project's done, and that's what you signed tonight to get reimbursed from the state. So
Are
that's
we getting any more?
not now. We had to, I thought 70 some grand for the 3 of them was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I can't see us doing that unless we get another grant. It'd be another good grant, but it wouldn't be worthwhile to see. Let's see how these things work first. And if they're as good as they say they are, we'll do more. You
Where
know,
would you put it?
Where,
really, what the DEP tells us we need to have it. Because what happened was they told us that we needed to reduce sediment within so many watershed areas. That's kind of what dictates that. And then that dictates where it goes within the system. But it isn't just, yeah, I want to put that one down by Bruce's place. It's kind of, hey, there's a sediment issue down there, and that's what we need to focus on. Make sense? Next group is 438. This is the overall wages for the other 4 guys, and that's going up 3% for the bargaining agreement. Other than that, no changes on this page. Going on to the next page, which is 454, which is parks. I'm still asking, the big number here is a couple $100 to replace weed whackers, which isn't anything. But I still want to keep $10,000 for charters in McLaughlin Park. I got quotes to put hand dryers in the park bathrooms. The hand dryers aren't that expensive. It's the dedicated electric services lines that need done for each hand dryer. I have a quote to do that work, and it's pretty much the $4,000 project to put hand dryers in the bathrooms. So I wouldn't mind doing that next year, and this is how we would pay for it. Now, I know it's needed. People have been asking for this for a while now. It'd be nice. The bathrooms are nice, they're clean, and it's kind of like, we went about 9 yards to finish it.
You might even have the paper towel stuff in the toilet.
So you said,
That's what they do.
yeah,
they didn't even have big jobs this summer.
Any concerns on them pulling them off the wall?
Yeah, they're gonna get vandalized, that's what happens in parks. Like even now, like our bathrooms like get screwed with, we got clothes, we have issues with kids and stuff. That's a part.
You got your cameras there now, and that's a deterrent, and if it happens, there's a good chance we catch who it was.
It's interesting that you say that, because this year, there hasn't been issues that I've been told of at Chartiers. All our issues have been at Cook and McLaughlin, and there's no cameras at them. But I'm asking the capital budget to put cameras.
The parks are to be closed at dark, or,
I don't know. I can't answer.
because I'm just saying, like the skateboard kids, there's no light over there where they're at, but.
Yeah, but it's,
it's-
sign
it's-
says 11 o'clock now.
Yeah, that's
And
why I'm
where the
asking.
problem is, because there is confusion, because one park says dusk, Triangle Park says dusk, and then
That's
McLaughlin and
true.
Chartiers say 11. I think the ordinance technically is 11.
Well, the reason it said McLaughlin was
Because the game
is a softball.
Right.
It was a softball.
So that's,
And you could change it.
because,
If you wanted to.
because the kids on the skateboards are there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I mean, but there's no light.
Yeah.
If you have light for them, then you wouldn't mind it, but I hate to see somebody get hurt over there. Because you can hear banging, till late, but that just, that breeds, no light breeds,
That's a good conversation to have, because this is where our ordinance is weird. The park ordinance says the park hours are established by the rec committee, but then there's really nothing codified that tells you what the park hours are other than these signs. And then there's a later section that says all roads within parks are closed at 11 o'clock. So that's what the police have been hanging their hat on to get used by there, because that's something written black and white saying 11 o'clock. But it'd be
Well,
very
they
easy
would-
for us to
The
change.
thing with the 11 o'clock, people rent the pavilions, they have parties down there, they're not going on Sunday. It's sort of ridiculous.
I don't know.
What, you're gonna take that into account too, as far as,
maybe look into putting lights down there.
put a light up there.
Yeah, for the.
We have those lights.
What if you
Those
just-
poles?
Or what if you just turned one around? What would that do?
Facing over that way.
Is that what?
I'm just,
That-
it's
those, those lights are useless.
Right up Bruce's yard. You're in Alaska.
don't matter.
Well,
I fall asleep with the light on, so.
That could be a possibility. Because it would light it enough to put something there.
I'm just saying, I hate to see the kids get hurt and that. And there's one street light that's like right behind my dad's house, that's in the park area.
Yeah, there's a
street light.
couple of them in
Yeah,
there.
and then they go through the parking lot,
Yeah.
but there's nothing really over in, I think there's one all the way in the other end.
Yeah, it's down by the horseshoe court.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's.
Just
see.
something for next year.
So,
Put a couple bonfires in that new pit over there.
that may be a nice committee thing where we look into maybe something simple, spinning those lights that really are surplus now. So I can't see, I don't know what to do with them.
You know, the ball field.
Yeah, the ball field lights.
That'd be pretty bright.
But what else do you do?
Well, Chartiers Park could use some more lights on those fields, because there are some major dark spots. But I'm curious on how much it would cost to put those.
At least you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
That was the newer light.
But that could be something we could talk about at Parks and Recs this year.
It's a good discussion. All right, so that's next one, it says allocation in 456, that's the library. I have the library going up to an even 25,000 next year. Any feedback on that?
How much was it before?
It's 22, going to 25.
We've been underfunding them for,
Well,
the ratio they give you.
Well, they give you, I forgot the money for people we have.
The ratio.
Yeah.
Well, they don't get all some of that,
Yeah.
the stuff they have, right?
No.
But you're talking about our money.
Our money, yeah, our
I
money.
thought you were talking about their money.
No. The red money, I think they,
I thought you were getting the discount. to
No,
sell
no,
it.
no, no.
Take it back.
I remember when we gave them only $4,500.
Yeah.
Mr.
It was a big thing to go to
Mrs.
Penn.
Lutz would come in here every meeting and
going down, I'm hoping we have community day on the avenue next year, so money's in there on revenue and the expenditure side for that. We're gonna have to start having that discussion on the planning for that. This past week was kind of eye-opener for me that maybe something needs done, because next 2 years, bridge construction. I don't know how we're gonna do detour and bridge construction coordinate that. So if we have to move this for a year, I don't know, but it's something that we need to start talking about. One, authorizing doing it, and then two, how do we coordinate this with all that work down here?
Is it worth moving it down the road?
So I think so, but let's, we need to have that discussion.
How about Commercial Street?
Commercial Street.
National Railroad should go.
You know, you just need to have parking. You know, if you have it on the lower end of commercial, I thought of that too.
Because that bridge work's going pretty much consecutive now through October of next year. And we saw the traffic, it was like last week.
Yeah.
It's crazy, people crawling here angry at us, you know, and it's like, just get used to this for a year. It's no pain, no gain, you know, it's like,
A lot of us close that one, what was that, once a year? We had to go up and down the bank.
And then going down, this takes you into insurances, the MMOs, this, you'll see the police state aid, that's pretty much the police MMO. It's down a lot just because the pension fund's doing well. The non-uniform, it matches the MMO. Insurance coverages are pretty much match trend and match what the insurance agent is saying, what to expect for next year. And then you see how this was down a lot. It matches the loss in the revenue, so that's why I said don't get too alarmed. Reserve for contingencies. I have a note here. I have $5,000 of the contingency I'd like to dedicate for a public art program. This has been a unique endeavor over the past year that involved for something the mayor asked for. The mayor asked me, hey, what can we do to paint the trestle? So at first, I went to the rail yard, or the railroad, and said, hey, what can we do to paint the trestle? And they came back with, no. And I'm like, maybe I can get creative and try to get like a mural grant or something. Maybe that's the way to paint this trestle, with a mural or something. So I couldn't find, public art grants are hard to come by, so I didn't know anything about art. I knew a family in town that just built a house that her husband was an artist. So I went to them, like a great relationship, said, hey, do you have any advice for me of where I can go for public art grants? And she said, well, let me ask around in my circles. Well, she comes back and they like the idea of possibly doing a mural down here, and they came back and said, we like it so much that if you put $5,000 towards a project, we'll put $5,000 towards this project. We'll match it $5,000 over 3 years, so it's $15,000 for a public art project. But we need to do $5,000. So then the conversations got more intense with the railroad, and BJ was helping with that. And we met with them virtually, and really, I went nowhere. Basically, hey, you could paint the bridge, but it's probably $150,000. You could fix the walls, but no murals. We want them our solid color. That's another $150,000 if you follow our spec. And we're like, this is $300,000 to clean up your property. And we're like, we're hitting a dead end here. But at least the idea of doing a public art project, a mural or whatever, it's not dead. It's still on the table. Just find another home for it. So I have here in the budget, in the contingency fund, just $5,000. I want us to all just keep in mind of, if we can pull this off, someone's at the table to give us $5,000 too. So that's what that is.
Man, I hope that goes. I hope that happens. I hope that's
Build a nice wooden wall over their coffee wall.
We thought that. Yeah, we went that way too. And it's funny is this citizen was so passionate. He cut out 8-foot, 12-foot wooden panels and was down there to take pictures of what that in relationship to real life size is, you know. So we may have to think outside the box.
That's what I mean, it's something that,
Yeah,
They don't own the sidewalk.
yeah.
well, that.
You don't know the sidewalk.
Movable screens. Yeah.
So that's what that is. We see that note, and I know it's something new to us, but that's what the story is. So
Talk about picture panels?
that's what they were hoping. They thought was, hey, if we can't do a mural and paint this, maybe we could do,
Storyboard type guy.
they called it an outdoor photo or picture gallery. And basically,
Change over time.
yeah, you would just have this big mural that would be on like a big, and then you just put it up. behind.
ugliness of it.
Yeah.
They're actually putting something together now, so it's in the works that'll be presented to you at some point in time.
Wonderful.
It was
That's
nice.
great.
This is one of the people that we interview for planning commissions too, right?
Yes.
We couldn't get her husband, but she agreed. He would help.
Mayor, way to push it.
It worked out good. It was nice.
That's great. That's exciting to hear. Just, that's a great way to think out the box.
This was Yellowstone, we just blow that bridge up. She'll take care of that.
And then the last section is the debt. This is the 15-year capital project loan we took out last year. It stays the same. So overall, our expenditures are matched the revenue at 3.3. Again, the overall increase of 22,000 is a balanced budget. This year, if you look at the third column, we're on track to end it. Revenue slightly above expenditure. No crazy surplus like prior years. We got hit hard with a very bad winter. Stuff's more expensive, and we've been very active. That's really the meat of it, but.
That was by design.
Yeah, so that's what happens. But we'll see. The tax revenue is already exceeding my forecast, so I think I was concerned.
Houses keep selling what they are.
And we'll know next month. Then in your packet was 3 items. You had this larger spreadsheet. You had the actual budget that gives the stories to everything that would be what we advertise as this. And then you have the actual budget actual for 2021.
Joe, I had one question about the taxes. Is the school district being pretty active in regards to questioning assessments?
We have seen a couple, when you see your tax collector's report, you see probably a half dozen adjustments each month, but I haven't seen hearing notices like you used to.
Because the sales prices in Ridgeville have gone up significantly, so are the assessments falling? I guess because, and correct me if I'm wrong, the school district
School
is basically handling all that.
Yes.
So it's their equation of if it's above this amount of percentage, they're going to go.
Correct. You don't see a lot of them. I remember years ago, we used to get hearing notices.
Right.
I don't get hearing notices. I don't know if it's just the way they do things now, but every month on the tax collector's report, you'll see changes.
Yeah.
There's a couple each month.
Okay.
And they do typically go back off of change of assessment kicked off by the school.
I'm just wondering if the school district has been active with that or not, so.
I can't speak to that, but there has been some activity.
Okay.
There is probably room for a lot more because home values are through the roof, which is good for us homeowners here. Never mind or anything. Every day. All right, so any questions on general fund expenditures? All right, so the next page is sewer fund. There's a couple takeaways on the sewer fund. First one is cash on hand. The last consent order ended 2-3 years ago. There hasn't been any substantial sewer outlay work here since the Gateway days. So for the past 2 years, aside from backfill projects, there hasn't been any pipe repairs. So your sewer fund has built a considerable reserve, which is, we knew it was coming. But now that we're back in the consent order, we're playing catch up. We just put out an awarded contract for Cameron and all that work. We know there's a lot of deficiencies that are going to be found in pretty much that half of town. Because we had an idea with the last round, but they didn't get to them. So they probably got a little worse. A lot of it's going to be lining. So when you get down to the expenditure side, we're playing catch up. So it's a little bit more than it was in the past. So instead of raising sewer rates dramatically next year, it's basically taking the surpluses which we've been building to now do that work. So cash on hand is using $600,000 of the approximate $1.3 million sewer fund surplus. It's still considered a healthy fund balance in the sewer fund, but that's what that proposes. Now going down into the sewer revenue, Elkistan did put out their rate fees. For 5 years, they put out, for the next 5 years, they're going up 7% each year. So consider 7% from now for 5 more years. Our rates aren't proposed to go up next year, they're proposed to stay the same. So overall, it's a 4.5% sewer fee increase that I'm asking to recommend this gets passed on. Essentially, we're just passing on the LSF fee. So sewer revenue is up 73,000 next year, and that's mainly the LSF fee. So sewer revenue is $2.3 million. Now on the expenditure side, this is where there's a lot of notes, so we'll go through each one. Admin and public works wages are going up 3%. That just matches what we're paying out in the general fund, and that just shows the sewer fund reimburse the general fund. The next item is engineering correction work. We have a lot of sewer work going on right now. It shows that going up $20,000 next year. And this is us talking to them saying, hey, how much sewer work do you think we're going to have? There's a lot of sewer work relative to regionalization and the potential transfer of the McLaughlin trunk line that's quasi 3 towns all over to Elkasam. So we had a meeting with Elkasam yesterday to start coordinating that so that work can be moving forward. There's a number of repairs that we got to do before we pass that pipe over to Elkasam, which gets a burden off of our books, so it's kind of a no-brainer, but there's a lot of hoops you got to do before you give that burden. And then also the consent order, which we agreed to, structures O&M work, so like we just did with that camera work and finding these repairs, there's engineering that's going to come out of that. Because what's going to come out of this is that starting within the next month, tomorrow is our pre-construction meeting with that contractor, we're going to find all deficiencies, and then the engineer now has to put out another contract to find and fix everything now. So next year is a lot of fixes, so the engineering has to match it. Legal fees, I just have to going up $1,500. We don't pay much out of the sewer fund in legal, but a lot of it's just consent order based. Going down, sewer vac and camera up 90,000. It shows a budget next year of 125,000. This is split 2 ways. We just awarded that large contract to State Pipe for $95,000. That pays for this. And then we also do our routine Vector work that we pay the COG. The COG comes here 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks a year, work with the Public Works Department, and we do in-house work. So this 125 is going to be the CCTV work we just awarded, and the COG work with the Public Works. Payment to Elkasam matches the pass-through, so up 7%. So basically to pay everyone's sewer bills in town is $1 million. Jordan tax billing is going up $4,000, and there's an interesting side note to this, why this is up so high. The pandemic put restrictions on you can't shut people's waters off, so they file a lot of liens now, so that debt's secure versus just letting it just build. So there's been a lot of sewer liens filed on properties this year, which has been good. A lot of people refinancing homes, a lot of people have been caught up, but we're staying active in leading homes.
What is the approximate amount that's outstanding? So,
I'd have to get you that, but basically if you hit $500, we leave your house. That was the threshold.
it was like 10,000, 50,000?
It's probably 57.
Oh, wow.
It's substantial. I can get you a lien number.
No.
It's, that's worth having, because the last conversation I had with Bill Leonard regarding, this number, it was over 60. That was a lot.
Are they doing any collection efforts on that? Or
Yeah.
is it?
No, they aren't, because every month I do get delinquent lien sewer bills. But I didn't want you to think that we're paying more for billing and postage. This is the leading costs.
Well, but we're going to receive that back.
Oh, and then some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whenever they actually pay, they have to pay those costs.
Absolutely, yeah. But that's right now in lieu of shut-offs, because they're not doing shut-offs. Newsletter marketing, what this is, we're just proposing next year to match what we did this year. Every quarter doing a quick little coffee talk, quarterly update with your garbage bill, and it's paid on the garbage fund. And then last meeting, you agreed doing the annual big newsletter, and then the sewer fund pays for the postage of that. So this is just the postage of the big newsletter. Source reduction, $325,000. This is pretty much phase 1 of all the repair work we're going to find within the camera work. And then the next line item, repairs and corrections, $450,000. This is split twofold. $325,000 again for another phase 2 of the repairs, and $125,000 to continue phase 5 of the backflow preventer project. We just wrapped up phase 4 of it. We've had 2 floods this summer, and if anything, we walk away from the floods, the backflow preventers in most cases are working. So it's kind of a nice thing, let's just keep it going. It's not cheap, we just finished phase 4, which was $120,000. Phase 5, we just mailed out surveys today to 29 property owners. Essentially, we're just keep going up McLaughlin Run. Phase 5 will finish McLaughlin Run from Spruce to Coolidge. So everything from Coolidge down to the start would be taken care of with this project. There was maybe like a handful of properties that didn't participate in the prior phases, but then said, hey, can I get this now? They were lumped in with the surveys for phase 5. And there's one oddball in phase 5 that there's that ongoing issue up on New York Street was going to participate in this. There's only one house on New York that I promised into this. There's properties that want to participate going up in the 1100 block of McLaughlin. I'm hoping 2 things happen. One, when the surveys come back, there's a topography thing to take into account on McLaughlin. The creek side, the houses are here, and on the other side, a lot of those houses are up. So if I get surveys back that say, I've owned this house for a long time and I've never had a sewer backup, we're not going to waste the money on your house. And I'm hoping then I can take that house and then just keep going up the 1100 block, kind of like in the A&H area, because those people are banging on the door saying, please do my house. I'm having sewer backups, but I can't jump. I got to keep going up the street as I can. So 29 houses finishes a couple stragglers all the way up to Coolidge. But if the surveys come back where they don't need it, I'm going to take it back. And we revised the letter. It basically said that too.
Are you getting the one next to the bar? Bill Goldberg.
Where's he at?
The 828's my.
Before you go up the other street.
Right where the bar, no, right where the bar is.
Oh, okay.
Right next door.
On the right
There was a
side.
Because he
couple-
was missed last time.
What's his name?
Bill Goldberg.
Let me check, because there was a couple of stragglers. There's one on Maple that was skipped a couple times, and then there is someone in the 800 block. So
Yeah.
let me check.
Mine's 828, so his would be 826.
All right, so I'll let you know. So between those 2 line items, we're almost at $800,000 pipe fixes next year. Going down, one calls, it stays the same. Flow monitoring, this is engineering work, part of the consent order. As I talked about earlier, we met with Alcosan. We have a number of points of connection where our sewer system connects to Alcosan, takes you down to Pittsburgh retreated. It's interesting. On Commercial Street, we have 2 points of connection. There's C5410, which is behind the fire station, and then you have, I think it's called C53, which is kind of behind Shannon Safety. Those are the 2 main Alcosan points of connection. The behind Shannon Safety takes pretty much just Bridgeville, doesn't overflow much. The one that's behind the firehouse overflows routinely. We're under strict scrutiny, but we have to document it all the time. My Bible's in my office full of inspections of it. That line there is the multi-municipal one that's Upper St. Clair, Bethel, and Bridgeville. That's the one where we're in talks of transferring over to Alcosan. It's been going on for a while. There's an interesting thing where those sewer lines come parallel down through the park and down Baldwin Street. You see the 2 lines. In the middle of Baldwin Street, in the vicinity of the Muck Manor or whatever the kennel is, there's a manhole where they cross. And the engineer is studying what can we do to take Bridgeville out of C5410 and put it all into the one line that just connects behind Shannon Safety. That way, we reduce water going to the multi-municipal one, where hopefully we reduce overflows, but it also takes us out of the multi-municipal equation because we're not contributing that much into that line. And basically, it's just 2 towns coming through Bridgeville. There is a couple properties that are connected into that, such as your house and that are up there. And there's a couple that are in there that we probably won't be able to get rid of, but a lot of the other ones, we're hoping to see what can we do to get that water out of that line. And this flow monitoring work is determining that engineering study to transfer that over. And we're hoping to do a grant application to Elkasand to fund that project. So that when you always hear grow money, Elkasand grow grants, we keep getting denied. But this year, we met with them yesterday, and it's interesting. The Elkasand maps weren't showing correct flow, and they were denying us on that because we said, they kept saying, Bridgeville doesn't have an overflow problem because our system was doing good. All the overflows in Bridgeville has been on C5310, the multi-dimensional trunk line. They were forcing Bridgeville to do a project that would reduce I&I to that overflow. So the engineers are studying right now, how can we do a project that gets us out of that equation? So the flow monitoring is going to continue that work to study that. So that's what that is. Physical model survey is continuing. That's year 2 of an engineering consent order project. And then lastly, capital purchases. This has been called on by Mr. Petroselli and a number of folks, is updating the backhoe for next year. We've been talking about that. We use the backhoe in-house to do sewer repairs, so I'm proposing to pay for the backhoe out of sewer fund. I have got 5 different quotes on a backhoe for next year. All of them are at state prices, and they all range from $105,000 to $125,000. And I went for a beefier machine, a little beefier than what we have now, 4-wheel drive, a little more horsepower, but I wanted additional equipment that can basically match what we're doing now with creek work. The backhoe's in the creek all the time now. And there's quotes.
Did you get an extender hoe?
Yes, the backhoes that we have quoted are all extended hoe, and they all grapples on the back, grapples on the front, forks on the front so you can clear the trash rack, and then the grapples would be used for just getting logs in precarious locations. So the idea is upgrade this for sewer repairs, but we're upfitting it for a healthier machine to do creek work. And then I know we've had the conversation of let's keep the old ones, the wheels fall off. We don't think there's much value, and it can be the salt lick. So the next leg in the backhoe hunt is similar to the lawnmower. I had the guys, knowing they're all pretty much the same price, I said, hey, you guys have to use this thing. I don't know anything from backhoes. Tell me who your top 3 picks are. And I gave them all the proposals on all the backhoes, and the guys rated them, and their top 3 picks are Caterpillar, John Deere, and New Holland. So I went to those 3 saying, hey, can I have a demo unit that we can try? Caterpillar is dropping off a demo unit here on Thursday that we can have for a couple of days. They said we can put 5 hours on the machine, and then the guys are going to be trained on it. It's basically, buy a car, see if you like it. On Thursday, from a guy from Caterpillar will show it to them, and then for the next couple of days, they have instructions. See if the thing fits in the Janeway ramp. Does it fit, does it work like a trash rack? Does it fit in the basement? So these are the things we're going to try to work out, because the leader of the pack, the guys downstairs, is a Caterpillar. But I was kind of happy that we can get one free of charge and put some hours on it, and at least get it in these locations versus having wires for it. So the first demo is coming this week.
Is Nino going to get the demo?
He can come down Thursday, 1 o'clock. So
I need to step right to get
I was gonna say.
Doesn't say how you rapture, but beat their pedals.
Who needs another machine to put me up?
But if you're interested, it will be here for a couple of days, and there's going to be a guy here to show them how to use it on Thursday.
Security, what
We're
you
talking
say
like-
about cases?
We did get a quote on case, but the guys weren't in love with it. I don't know why, but the numbers were all the same, so to me, it didn't really matter. Now granted, Caterpillar was the leader of the cost, but,
Yeah, but service is the other side.
and that's where they said the Caterpillar was prevailing on the service side. And if anything, this was the red flag was getting the demo. Caterpillar was saying, I'll get you something next week. The other ones are like, I don't know when I'm going to get one. And I just read it. So
Just out of curiosity, with the 2 major expenses, if we would have done things the last 2 years, what would be the expense? Like a third of that?
I would say so, because if you look on, this was in last year's budget too, but we applied for the GROW grant and it got denied. On page 30 of the actual narratives, this yellow section, this is our sewer system, and this map really isn't that good, but at least gives you an idea what's going on. This yellow and green section is what you just awarded a CCTV contract for, and all the red bubbles are pipelinings that were called out by Gateway to be lined that weren't done. And it's about $600,000 of pipelining. So we applied for a GROW grant saying that, hey, these are all, look at all these pipe deficiencies. This is water infiltration that's surcharging our system. And they came back saying, whoa, 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 whoa. All this hill does not go into C5310, it goes into C54. And then we're saying, no, 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 it does. And Augustine, according to their GIS, said it didn't. So when we were doing the manhole inspections this year, the inspections showed that it was, even though our grant got denied. So we can't kick the can any longer. We're running a consent order. We're going to start fixing the red bubbles. And a lot of these are pipelinings. And that bridges us to how I said our storm sewer issue. I said we're going to have a large pipelining contract come out. Let's just pipeline that storm sewer. So that's where where my mind was. So this, instead of doing one large pipelining project, it could have been spread out. But there was no one holding our hand to the fire because there was no consent order.
Right.
And that's where, I know the consent order is awful, where you gotta start paying for stuff, but I can speak for, I knew 15 years ago, when I was structured on a consent order, I didn't have many sewer backups or root balls causing sewers to explode in storms because I was in there every year doing stuff, and it caused a lot of stuff to go away. So people hear the O&M and the consent order saying, oh my God, you're making me do all this. Well, thank God, I'm not having sewer breakups. I've had 2 massive sewer breaks this year in the past 3 or 4 months. And I think if we get back into the O&M days like the town used to be, a lot of these problems go away because we're getting ahead of it.
It's spread out.
Yeah, it's spread out. And it's nice because town, you can see the color code. This is how, this goes back to the old O&M days. We're just getting right back into it again. So it's someone telling you what to do, but at the end of the day, it's needed. That's my experience with it.
Okay.
So sewer fund is a balanced budget again of roughly 2.2 million. Any questions? All right, so going on the next page. 06 is garbage fund. We bounced this off of the finance committee before coming here tonight. The garbage contract, we're going into year 4 of the 5-year agreement with County Hauling. The contract's going up a little bit next year. It's roughly $4 more a quarter, okay? Or overall for a year per account.
Yeah.
So if you look at the bottom of the page, the garbage fund had a substantial little nest egg growing, but what we charge the residents has been $53 a quarter, has been the same fee as year 1 of the contract. Well, the contract's gone up every year, and we've been eating the increase instead of passing that along. So next year, it's again, eat the increase, use the cash on hand versus passing that increase on. Now, next year or the year after, you're going to have to raise the garbage bill. But next year, it's the fund's going to be short 11 grand. There's 11 grand of a fund balance. We're recommending use the fund balance versus increase the garbage bill. So if you look at this, it maintains the quarterly fee at $53 a quarter. This is the 4th consecutive year. And then garbage-free revenue is $448,000. Now, on the expenditure side, there's a couple things worth noting. Wages, this reimburses the public works, mainly the office time, because the billing's done in-house, 3%, and that just matches what we're sending out. Other charges is going up $500. This is part of a recycle event. It's becoming well participated in, and then it just matches what we're paying. Solid waste collection, there's 2,051 accounts. We pay in next year $204.72 a quarter, so it's going up roughly $800. And then bad debt reserve, I just have going up $1,600, and it just matches what you have here. And a lot of it isn't so much bad debt, it's usually just contingency costs. So that's the garbage fund next year. Any questions? Kind of status quo operation, eating the increase. That's kind of the synopsis.
One of the complaints is I saw on social media.
On social media only. It was weird. In the office, I didn't know. I had 0. And I checked with the crew, it's been 0. And this is like a public education thing. It's where a lot of the complaints we do get is is the citizen and the manner they put their trash out. And they just blame the garbage company and they just stack stuff out and expect the world.
They don't put it in the can and
And
right up the street from me around the corner. She puts it out in the bags out. You go by every week and it's all tore up with the raccoons.
they're not
Put it in a
gonna-
can.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to strap the top of my can down because the raccoons go through the bottom of the barrel, they go through the top of it. But you keep it up.
Is any of you here remember 30-some years ago that we didn't charge for garbage?
It was in the tax base.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
Had to be.
Yeah, we didn't charge that at all.
We didn't charge, but it came out of the general fund.
Okay, that's correct. It wasn't a tax base. Well, that's when the first year I was in council that I made the proposal that we don't do that. And I used that road because you can use liquid fuel for something. And that's when we started the program on the road. Whatever we were paying from the general fund, we added with the liquid fuel. That's when we done some of the road. So it's a lot of people don't know that. That's years ago.
Taxation without revenue.
Taxation.
That was
I
the
said,
big,
what the hell?
that was the big argument back then.
Yeah, tell me about it.
That was the big argument.
Then I could speak a little better English because I was younger.
Not much.
Any other
Thank you.
questions on garbage? All right, next project page is the 19s, which is your capital improvement fund. All right, so this one is kind of unique to follow. A lot of this is just rotating the cash on hand. And this is the loan proceeds from last year, just keep floating on the project. So you see next year cash on hand, $2.3 million, and it's needed as we go on. So on the revenue side, you see we'll finally get the Chartier Street widening grant from the county, because that project is going to be done next year. This is what the plan is. Other state grants and the stimulus money, this is projects we applied for and guaranteed, and it's explained in detail in the narrative section. And then the hazard mitigation grant, this is the Baldwin Street demos that we're moving ahead with that project. So overall, capital fund revenues is high. It's 5.3 million because the FEMA grants, and then all the grant projects we go on. Now, on the expenditure side, this is where a lot of the actions that we see around time. The first one is miscellaneous projects or retaining walls at $45,000, and this will be doing two projects, or three projects. One is, there's been a long outcry to redo the Greenwood steps. I had one quote received to do them for $25,000 with the concrete guy we use all the time, and that was with the Public Works help for him. So it exceeds bidding numbers, so I need to go back and now that if we get approval to do this with budget, to say, maybe we need to span this out over 2 years, or how can we make this number work so that it gets below the bid threshold? That
What is that number?
it floats each year. Right now, it's like 21, 20 something. It will go up probably a good bit next year because of the increase. We'll see. In the next year. But 25 grand of this 45 is dedicated to do Greenwood steps. And if anything, go back to our conversation about, hey, how can we implement anything out of this active transportation plan? And we can come out of here, pull the trigger when you adopt this thing in the first quarter and say, hey, we're going to let a contractor fix the Greenwood steps, and here's so much money that the Public Works is going to start doing signage improvements around town. We actually did something. So that's good. The other funds here is some projects at the Borough Building. Once we did the parking lot project, the whole facade on that side was never really finished. The stucco needs redone. So I had a quote from them, company to do that. That needs done. And then I had a quote, which is very expensive, but I need just chop it around, to redo the rusty awning out front. And it was like 11 grand to get that redone. But at least I have proposals. So that's where these numbers are. So these projects are fix the stucco, Greenwood steps, and the front line. And then going on the next page, following the one column, then the next project the Chartier Street widening is $588,000. We approved that wall project, at the last council meeting. This is reality. I remember when I met with that guy with the wall, I thought maybe they weren't gonna be doing that until next summer. He says, no, you're gonna see this work over this winter. So Chartier Street widening work's gonna be this winter, so. He says, that wall work that they're gonna be doing in the winter time.
Wow.
So we'll be starting to see real life works. And then with that, the gas line is in the process of being moved, the electric's already been moved. So a lot of the utility work is already being done, so it's real time. The South End Bridge, part of that same project, overall we owe one check to the Commonwealth for $788,000 at the end of that project. So Chartier Street and the bridge is one contract or one payment to the state once it's done. The project's on track to be done in October of next year, so it's going to move fast next year. Going down Chartier Park Rehab Project, this is 3 contracts in one. One is, part of this project is what we just finished up, which was the landslide repair. So we may be paying that this year, so this numbers may be a little skewed, but overall, it still lines up to be $690. And then in the spring, when we do the road project, we're going to lump in the road paving and parking lot resurfacing in the park. That's in this number. And then also lumped into this is the approved playground that we agreed on for the rec committee, and we approved that at council. And then that would do that playground. Where the hiccup on the playground was, is Chartiers Park is in the floodway of the creek. And part of the conservation district requirements is that it makes us jump through all these stupid permits, like we went through, I talked about for the levee project. They're making us go through with these floodway permits for the playground. So that's the delay of the
Oh. So that might not even happen next year.
Oh, it's happening next year. Originally, we wanted to do it this year.
Oh, that's right.
It's going in the spring. So one thing nice is hopefully we're on track for Memorial Day or end when school lets out, that the roads will be all redone and a new playground. So when summer is here next year, Chartiers Park really has a big facelift because the roads, the landslide's fixed, the roads are done, and the playground.
Does that include those fitness stations? And
That's a separate project. And I'm hoping that we'll know on that this week, and that's another line. So this line here, Chartier Park Rehab, are the 3 projects that we already agreed to and we pulled the trigger for. And it's, I don't know if Justine knows, that's a lot of the loan that we spent last year.
They're
just
gonna raise the elevation with playgrounds going this winter, or are they gonna wait till next spring?
I asked that too. It's pretty much, there isn't much of a raise. It's kind of at the same grade that it is now. Because originally it was explained to us that it was going to be all this grading work. It's not. He says it isn't needed. So I don't understand that, but that's a question we have to ask the
You
engineer.
said, the engineer said
The
that.
engineer said that. Yeah, because originally that was the lump in with this contract, is all the gradings will be done.
And they were gonna use the millings from the road or something.
The millings for the road are going to be used to redo the back road to the dump.
Just to let everybody know, the library got all the funding for the story walk program as well. The Bridgeville Rotary was able to get a grant through the Rotary Foundation for the final part. So when we do the whole trail, we'll be able to add that, the story walk stations to that one. I'm really excited about that. It's some really nice pictures of how that would look. I'll share it with
All right, so the next line item is park security cameras, 20,000. And this would put security cameras at the block on the Cook School Park, kind of just doing the same contract and project we did at Chartiers. And there hasn't been any issues with it. It actually has been working. And it's been funny. Most of the complaints we get at Chartiers is dumping in the dumpsters, and it turns out it's public works guys. So,
Yeah.
so that's it. So anything I need to improve my communication. That's what that is. But the cameras are working so far, so good. The next thing is the Warner Avenue Slide Project. We submitted a grant seeking $500,000. If the grant's awarded, that's in that revenue for that $1.3 million on the revenue side. We're just waiting on that. The next project is the McLaughlin's Park outfall and the street bank repair. You guys just authorized it at the last council meeting. We ordered all the materials for that project. It should be in within the month. So this project will probably be done middle of December. We'll be paying it in January. And to keep costs down, the engineer did good where he got the guy that did the ball field project, is the contractor, is gonna be doing the creek work. He thinks the work's gonna take 1 week. There's a large gravel bar in the creek there. That gravel bar is gonna be scooped out and be the back, the base for the stream bank repair. It's gonna be stone, pretty much match what you see down at Chartiers Park. We ordered and bought the stone and the outfall, the large storm discharge pipes through the borough, kept it out of the contractor to keep costs down. And there's lead times on that for about a month, so we wait for that to come. Once that stuff comes, the guy can come do that work. But we're looking to do this. And he said winter won't even be a problem. He'll work in the winter. So I was afraid of like a winter shutdown or something. Next thing is the blight removal projects. This is a grant we got this year. You guys authorized us at the last council meeting to put that out to bid, so it'll be a project for next year. And that revenue was in that lump in the revenue side. DPW equipment recycling program upgrades. I applied for a grant this year that replaces the public works truck, the leaf vac. The leaf vac, you know, it's not that old. It's been flooded 2 or 3 times and it's plagued with electrical issues. So we have a grant application to replace the leaf vac, buy a new dump truck, which replaces the 2020, 2000, the older dump truck if you see it outside. That would be like the leaf hauler. And it buys new recycle bins for every house in town who is in this project. So this is something that if it's funded, it would be funded in 2022. And how we work the recycle bins is something that maybe would be, I don't know if we do next year, we wait, and that's something that we use for how we bid the contract, that we get the recycle cans. In this grant, I spec'd out carts, the type there that you can automate.
Yeah.
And that would be a nice leveraging tool for a revised contract. We would be bidding that to maybe write this. So if we do get the grant, I don't think we end up using all the money next year. We may kick the can on recycle cans, but at least it'd be nice that every house gets a new recycle can, because we haven't done that in a long time.
About 20 years.
And then police equipment, we applied for a grant. I put in here, every grant that we applied for, I don't want us to be blindsided. What are we come up with this match? What is this project? So everything that we did a grant for is shown on an expenditure, and the revenue is budgeted as if it comes through. If it don't, we'll keep trying. But what this does is the chief had a desire to equip our officers with body cameras, which is great. So he's been working with the district attorney to get a policy together, so if we're funded, it can come through. And I did a grant application to the U.S. Department of Justice that would buy 10 or 12 body cameras, one for each guy, and it does the server system. So they're really not that much money. It's the server that costs the money. So this right here would be the body cameras, and it also puts $3,500 aside to do one of those small pole-mounted speed radar signs. We get a lot of those speeding complaints. It's a good public educational awareness thing that we can float around town, similar to what our neighbors do, but it's not the trailer type. It's like the little ones that Collier has. Yeah, it's solar power battery. They're not that expensive anymore. I have quotes at $3,500, and that's what this.
I'll buy one.
I'd like to see some pedestrian moves. I go through a lot of towns and see some really creative pedestrian, either crossing signs or.
I've sent 2 pictures of those.
It'd be nice to see if that comes out of the active transportation fund, because that would be a nice thing, like right here. All right, it'll be perfect for that.
Washington
Where you hit that button, and those lights are very prominent on both sides.
It'd be nice if our plan calls for that, some cool like intersections, and we start fishing for grant money for that. But that's.
Do you know if South End Collier got body cameras?
I know, yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah, I know Collier just for here.
Yeah.
And I know something does. All right, the next thing is the Chartiers Park Fitness Trail project. We applied for a grant back in May that would redo the current trail that we have, and then finish it. So it would make it a complete loop around Chartiers Park, paved 8-foot wide asphalt path, and then there'd be 3 exercise stations on there that would have adult-aged exercise equipment, similar to what you see in South Park. And that's what the grant was applied for. The grant's $250,000, our match is $50,000. We will know this week if this grant's awarded or not. The Commonwealth Finance Authority who decides this grant met today and voted today, so we'll know this week if we're awarded or not. So it'd be nice that if this is awarded, we will know at the next council meeting. If that gets awarded, Chartiers Park it's up there with our neighbors. We got a brand new fitness trail, new playground, the roads are redone, and the landslide's fixed. And it's coupled with what we got now, that's, we're equal.
The libraries thing, the story,
The story.
we're gonna put them on McLaughlin? or-
I don't know. If we do this trail, it'd be nice to have it on the new trail. That's my recommendation.
Plus the fitness trail also.
And they're just 3, imagine like
Single station.
3 stations.
Yeah. The only thing I'm a little worried about Chartiers is going back down towards where the old dump was down there. That's sort of like deserted down there, desolate.
And that's what this project would fix, because that whole grant was, when I wrote this, was that, hey, we have this nice start to a fitness trail, and it dumps you in a dump. It's weird, and I've lived here almost 15 years. Before I worked here, I never even knew the trail existed. So right there was something, like, maybe we can mark this a little better, but like the trail's nice, but
It just ends there.
it's weird, and like, if we can make this a nice thing,
Yeah.
then it's something where, like, I know, me and my family, we go walk over St. Clair, why should I do that? We go walk here.
You could even have the storybook, somewhere around the woods behind the fields where you don't have to go back behind the big field or something.
Yeah, where, starting like where the old volleyball court was
Yeah.
down there, down towards that, and like at the base of the hill come down from Chartiers, it's like a swamp, there's all kind of water and whatnot. We tried to put it before, it just didn't came out.
Yeah,
Public Works did a lot of work, right now there's still a lot of
yeah.
drainage and crap down there, hopefully we do something with
300,000,
that.
so that's a lot of money.
Nice chunk of change.
So let's see. So one, let's see if we're awarded this week, and then if it is, a couple of other stuff, that's gonna be a nice part. Nice, it is nice already, it's just, it takes.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so that's that. Road paving. There was talk from the Public Works Committee and then the Finance Committee when we were doing this year's road project that, hey, we're going to be getting ourselves behind the 8 ball because what we can do with the liquid fuels is only 1 or 2 streets. We need to maybe step up. So next year, I'm asking to take $225,000 out of the capital project fund, add it to what we already do with the 125 from the liquid fuels, and do a $350,000 large road program next year. So for example, just economies of scale, this year our road program is like, it's been like 200-some thousand. We did a lot this year. We did Terrace, Calvert, all the stuff on Bar Hill, Church Street. So look what we got for 200. Imagine what we can do for 350, and we just keep going off of the engineer's road rating schedule, which are the worst to the best. So that way it's not like
You finished
commercially.
McLaughlin too, didn't you?
What's that?
You finished McLaughlin too with that money.
That was
The
the
McLaughlin
same
Park.
contract what we paid for out of the park.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm asking next year just to get caught up on roads.
Yeah, you and I
Come out
talked
of
about
that too.
Chartiers paving? No, the paving of Chartiers is out of that 690. So if you think about it, 350 is going to be for roads, probably 200,000 is going to be for paving at that park. So this should get some attention from bidders.
Do we have any potential ideas what PennDOT's doing next year, our roads?
They told us they're doing Bank Street. Like, I know Bank Street, because you're going to see on your December agenda is I have all the contracts from PennDOT to do all the sewer adjustments, and they're on track for Bank Street.
it's gonna be paved.
And then that's what made us do that motion at our last meeting is, hey, PennDOT, can you do a speed reduction study? Because we already get speed complaints now. What's it going to be like when it's fresh asphalt? It's going to be a drag strip.
So it's asphalt, it's not concrete?
It's
Repair the
asphalt.
concrete and then do
Well,
things.
after the bid, they said no gas pump.
They told us they're gonna do concrete repair, and then mill down the concrete 2 inches, and then asphalt overlay.
So you're gonna get good 3 inches of asphalt, maybe more.
Yes. And that's what triggered us getting involved, because we now have to adjust all the answers. And that's what you'll see on the next month's agenda, is authorizing them us to reimburse them if they do this work. Make sense?
I'm glad about that, catching up on this, Junior July, I called you, I said, we gotta be doing it. We have a lot of bad roads. And,
You know, he had to bend my arm really hard.
yeah, I bet. But him and I, we had that in mind to do this, to go up.
24.
24.
And then maybe right before, after Christmas, we should have a public works committee where we finalize what roads we want next year, off of that engineer's list, so that in January, you can tell the engineer to contract.
They know better, so get inventory for them, and then we'll look at it.
Yeah, so I'll make it. And then the last thing here is just the FEMA grant going out, and that's the flood demos. And that's 1.2 million, and that's pretty active and moving forward. I know it's kind of sad. Landlords are now serving eviction notices on people, and I'm getting calls on, can I get tenant assistance, which you can, but it's after the fact. And then some people just say, I can't find a house, so it sucks, but we know it's. So things are moving, so that's cool. So actual expenditures on capital project next year should be $4.5 million. Just go to the next page. I wanted to follow this because there was a lot of activity with grants. It kind of made the cash flow hard to understand. You follow the cash flow, it all makes sense. So if you look at the spreadsheet, first number is what we have in the capital project fund, $1.83 billion. And this includes $256,000 of the federal stimulus money. You see it's in green. It's green on purpose. We're kind of, as of right now, we're tied to what we can use that money to, and it's basically sewer work, just to keep it easy here. So, to me, anything in storm sewer, we can potentially use that money for when it's time to do the reporting. So when you see the expenditures in green, that's going to be what we're going to say on paper, what we're using the stimulus money for. But when you can be like any city in the world and say, hey, we're going to be doing all these projects, because in reality, we've had an influx of $500,000 coming in here that will enable us to do these capital projects now. But on paper, it's going to be for the sewer projects. You follow me on that? So, okay, so going down, this is what we owe on current projects. But a lot of this has changed since October 1st. The Janeway project, we still have $14,000. That's kind of what we're holding until he puts the backflow preventer in, which is on back order, which is taking longer than he thought. Where we're building roof, that's been paid off. We don't owe anything on that anymore. Bar Hill Storm, we just paid the last bill at the last council meeting, so that's a zero. That's done. Storm Sewer Project, we just paid that off, but we have a match of $4,800 for that. And I'm saying on paper, $4,800 is stimulus funds. Churchill Street widening, we still owe $788,000. The Warner Street project, we know is $781,000. We have applied for a $500,000 grant for the project, but we still owe $281,000. So I'm hoping, in an ideal world, if stars align and we get awarded that money, that the GEDF pays the $500,000, and then the difference is our stimulus money. That's really it. So the stimulus money would pay for Warner. Now, when it comes down to, if this don't come through, we have another $256,000 we're going to get to 22. It goes to Warner. So on paper, all our stimulus money is going to Warner. And we crafted Warner, so when I redid the grant application, I changed the name of the project. So it's Warner Avenue Stormwater Improvements Mitigation Project, because we're putting a couple catch basins in, we're putting storm sewers in, and the reason why that thing slid over the road is because there was erosion issues caused by inadequate storm sewers. So it's legit. So that's the reason behind it. Churchill Park, we know it's $690. McLaughlin Run, that's another stormwater project, $25,000. Blight removal is going to be $82. The DP grant, these are all the grants I went through. So it comes out to be if all this goes through, it's 3.1 million. Now all the money's gonna start coming back in. 425 is coming back in from the county on the GBDF. We already got 300,000, which just came back. McLaughlin Run DCNR, I submitted for it, waiting for a check. Bar Hill Storm, I submitted this week, waiting on a check. Storm Sewer, Bill just signed it tonight, that will get sent in tomorrow, so hopefully we can have that check come in. Shorter Street widening, it's already committed for 22, it's 300,000, and all these monies are committed. And then the blight removal is committed under contract for 74,000. Now the grants that are sitting in limbo that are pending are body cameras, the DEP grant, Warner Avenue, and then Chartiers Park. So all the grant projects come out to be 2.1 million. And then if you go to the next page, the ending balance in the capital project fund after all the projects is $436,000. And then next year, we're going to get another $256,000. And then after we wrap up budget discussion, I have a request that the finance committee approved is start to transfer money from the general fund over into the capital project fund that we can keep paying for future projects, putting our $400,000 into it. And then once you keep going all the way down, we'll end the capital project fund with about $293,000 to $300,000. Now, some of these other new projects were already included in the budget, and it was included in the 293 at the bottom there. So that's where we end. If you look at the green, these are new projects that came up, and this spreadsheet has kind of been like liquid, all included in the past year. And a lot of these green things did get incorporated in the budget. The only thing that didn't get incorporated into the budget here was $100,000 for playground equipment. So this was the only number that's not in the budget. This would be a 2023 number. I'm hoping to make a grant application next year to the state to start upgrading playground equipment at Cook and McLaughlin Run Park. I sat on a webinar today with the state. They're going to open up that grant program in this year, and they're not due until next April. So that gives us 4 months to get a nice project together to just upgrade that playground equipment. Because our parks are really at a nice level. It's just the playground equipment we need to just keep up on. That's really it. So I wanted to just prime the mill on that. So other than that, it keeps us, in the black, and it keeps the money moving. So that's capital projects. Any questions? All right. Last fund, we're down on the money side, is the liquid fuels fund. And we use this money to pave roads every year. Very straightforward. We already got our letter for next year saying that we're going to get $137,000 in liquid fuels money. As you see, that number is just going straight down, and that's a whole other conversation why you're having a toll road and all this stuff, because no one's paying gas tax. And here's how it directly impacts Bridgeville. If you look back 3 years, you got $154,000 to pave roads. Next year, you're getting $137,000, and that's the real life. Here's my pill I got swallowed. So.
Well, in addition, costs are going up too, so it's going.
Yeah. So road paving is 137, and then it just shows it going right back out 137, and that pays for the engineer. And then 125 of it will be the contract that we put out for a decent road project. And then we'll meet in December, January to finalize what we're doing. Any questions?
The utility company did, went wall to wall on that patch, was it really?
Yes.
Yeah, they went on that.
Yeah, all the utility openings have been following the spec.
Yeah.
I go out and what we do 2 times a year so far, we did spring and fall, is every street opening, we keep a log, and then we send a letter to them saying, hey, we inspected your opening.
Yeah.
This opening now has to be restored for this spec, and then I mail them that spec so that it's done.
Yeah, they give me it, it's done all the way through. It's done a long time, but better than us.
Couple of
That's
things.
some now.
So that's the budget.
Okay. All right, a couple more things on the agenda. I need a motion to authorize the advertisement and public display of the proposed 2022 budget. Adoption scheduled for December 13th. And Joe has a second, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Nice job. I need a motion to authorize a fund transfer of $400,000 from the general fund to the capital project fund. This is the one you just described.
Maybe I can explain this a little better. Our fund balance going into 2021 in the general fund was $1.7 million. That is 56% of fund balance, of your budget is your fund balance, which is, you couldn't get any healthier than that. That's like over the top healthy. We met a couple times as finance committee. We're asking to leave $1 million still as a fund balance in the general fund, which is beyond healthy. And what that will enable is that we don't have to do a tax anticipation note, and that will carry the borough season to season. You know, most of the year we're in the red because tax season is coming towards the end of the year. So that will carry us. And then I know the prior manager always had that goal of $1 million. We struck the $1 million goal. We're going to keep that in line. And then the 700,000 over, we're at the point where we need to start replenishing the capital project fund so we don't have to do loans all the time. The other way we can avoid that, we don't have the growth as our neighbors. Let's hope for a surplus, save it. Hope for a surplus and save it. So now we're hoping to do two things. One, be a little more, just be conservative. And we know that the last flood cost us $250,000, $300,000 in 2018. Yeah, it was roughly that. So, and that was paid for out of the fund balance. So instead of robbing the $1 million fund balance, we're asking for two things. Let's put so much aside for capital projects, that's what the one motion is, and then the other motion is let's create another future flood disaster fund so when it happens again, we don't have to hit the fund balance and we have money there for contractors. Anything else?
No,
Rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Made it perfect.
That's it. Then it still leaves a very healthy fund balance, you know, $1 million and growing, and then we can start putting money aside for projects and rainy day.
All right, so I'll take a motion to authorize that fund transfer.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion to authorize the creation of the Bridgeville Budgetary Reserve Fund and authorize the transfer of $300,000 from the general fund to this new account. Under note, this is a portion of the fund balance as recommended by the Finance Committee. This fund will assist in covering the cost of future natural disasters. We have a motion made by Nino, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything under new business? I'll make a motion.
Great job, Joe.
Motion to adjourn, and we have a second on the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good job.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay, there's a test tomorrow, it's going good all.
Wait, I have recording is done.
Next week, yeah.
Well.